Okay, here we are. Good morning. Okay, seems to be working. Yep. Okay.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. All right. Well, here we are today. Welcome to everybody this morning. I hope you are well and taking care of yourselves and your families in these times. Click. Okay. So welcome again. This is our second webinar this year. And today we're going to have an interesting discussion about how organizations can survive, but most importantly, thrive in this next phase of the pandemic in Myanmar. In fact, as many would probably say, this probably is actually the first wave that Myanmar is experiencing. And so we'll be hearing from today's speakers about how organizations and most importantly, HR departments can thrive during these times. A little bit about JobNet for those of you who are not familiar with it. So we are part of an international group that has a presence in over 15 countries. And our expertise revolves around HR technology, most importantly, most specifically around recruitment technology solutions. We have been in Myanmar for about 5 years, and we have the honor to be working with over 800 companies. 90% of our resources and time is very centered around the platform, so our online recruitment and talent management platform, and as well as we organize some large events. Of course, due to the pandemic this year, we were unable to organize some of our largest job fairs. And lastly, as today we are here on this webinar, we organize from time to time a number of HR industry events in order to help support the growth of the HR community. Most specifically regarding our technology, since the beginning of the pandemic, so since about January this year, we have helped over 900 companies adopt what we call 100% cloud-based digital recruitment solutions. And in specific, it's our talent CRM product that has really allowed a lot of companies to be able to work from anywhere and handle recruitment from a remote setting. A lot of companies prior to having adopted our solutions were still in a situation where a lot of their CVs and recruitment files were in their offices. And so we've been kind of in the middle of this digitalization of the recruitment function, and we've seen it work with a lot of companies. We'll be touching upon this subject as well today when we talk about how the last couple of months has really provided an excellent opportunity for companies to digitize not just their recruitment function, but their HR as a whole, as well as all communications across the organization. So why are we here today? Well, we are here today first and foremost to learn from our panel of experts on how this period has provided an incredible learning opportunity for everyone, and how this crisis has been managed by some of the most well-respected organizations in the market. And we hope this provides you also with some more clarity and ideas on how to move forward and how to handle the challenges that are going to be presented to you in the upcoming months and perhaps year. Lastly, we'll be concluding with some insights about how organizations can prepare for the rebound and how you can leverage this to essentially, be ready for it and really take really advantage of that rebound that is going to happen very soon. Of course, along the way, feel free to ask any sort of question. You can just type them. I think there is a Zoom Q&A icon at the bottom, so feel free to write anything you'd like, and we'll be picking some of the most relevant questions along the way. So, in more specific, we're going to be touching upon 5 different areas today. The first one being really what has been what many people would call a delicate dance between operational and strategic responsibilities of the HR departments during the last 6 months. We're going to then talk about what have been some of the global best practices that organizations in Myanmar, particularly international organizations, have been able to implement here on the ground. As I'll be introducing the speakers, you'll see some of the organizations represented today on the panel have been around for nearly 100 years. And so what really have been some of the best practices that in the last century, organizations have been able to learn, the COVID-19 crisis is a serious crisis, but it's not the first one. There has been many crises in the past. And so we'll be exploring, how these organizations have developed real best practices along the way. We'll be then talking very importantly about how has the first wave in March and April helped us be better prepared now as the second wave, or some people will call it the first serious wave, is hitting the ground here in Myanmar. We'll be then concluding with an overview of some of the challenges that we foresee ahead or that organizations have had to face in the last couple of months, as well as lastly, and probably most importantly, what are the actual opportunities and opportunities for growth, opportunities for developing meaningful relationships with, in between the organization. As the saying goes, it is not, emotional relationships are not defined during periods of predictability or of certainty. And so it's really enduring these times of turbulence, if you will, that, it presents an opportunity for HR leaders and organizations to strengthen the bonds among people in their organization. So that's a bit of an overview about today. I am extremely delighted to have on the panel today 4 very senior HR professionals in Myanmar, representing very successful organizations. And the ladies I have with me today have really taken a real front seat in the last 6 months and have had to work extremely hard to manage this process. HR, these are certain unforeseen circumstances that the typical HR playbook doesn't really, explain in detail very often. And so these last 6 months have been incredibly challenging, and we'll be hearing today from them about, what have been some of the key activities and sort of learning points that you all can learn as well by being here with us today. So in no particular order, I'd like to introduce today's speakers. I'd like to introduce Zin, who is the HR Director of Unilever Myanmar, Valentina Lwin, who is the HR Director of Yoma, Thida, who is the HR Director of Coca-Cola Myanmar, and Hlaing, who is the Senior HR and Admin Manager at Otsuka Myanmar, most well known in the brand in the market as Pocari Sweat. So without further ado, I'd like to now stop sharing my screen. And I'd like to now start off with Valentina. And really, I think one of the most important, aspects of the last 6 months certainly has been about revolving around how HR has had to, again, be in the midst of this delicate dance between operational but also strategic responsibilities. And so I'd like to know from Valentina, at Yoma Land, even more broadly speaking in the Yoma group, how has this played out for you?
Thanks, Matt, and thanks everyone. Good morning. Mingalava, for joining this particular webinar this morning. So as Matt has said, my role is with Yoma Land, but of course it's within Yoma Group. So it's been a really exciting time in some ways, as much as challenging, to balance that operations and strategic requirements of HR. So HR, we talk about it, being sort of the behind the scenes and making sure that the business carries on and to support the front line and the key business areas. But in this particular case with the pandemic at Yoma Group, what we did was at the sort of executive level, develop a COVID command center. And what that actually did was to bring in some key people from the organization at very senior level, and HR was pretty much the center and forefront of that. So that was really just for us to be able to align across all the entities in terms of how are we going to go forward, how are we actually going to respond, how are we going to manage this particular crisis. So still needed to have very much the operation HR leaders who were running the operations on a daily basis, in addition to the normal payroll, normal contracts, normal business as usual stuff. But on top of that, planning out in case of lockdown, in case of any positive cases within the organization, how they were actually going to respond. So they needed to manage the process. And so that was still very much a daily job. But at the same time, from the strategic perspective, how are we actually going to align and manage as a group? But also looking at it in terms of the ambiguity. There was a lot of ambiguous information and uncertainty. We didn't know what we didn't know. And so that really called on a lot of that strategic skill set and mindset to think beyond what we currently have. So that's where it really did play out, both that tandem of strategic and operations. The other thing about that, the connection between the operations and strategic is that because we didn't really have this scenario played out beforehand, we had to kind of make up things and think about it more broadly. And we're making decisions based on the limited information and resources that we had from an HR perspective. But whether that actually worked in the operation, we needed to really very much rely on the operation HR teams to feed that information back. So whilst the strategic part was making decisions overall and attempting to implement it, we really needed to partner with the business and also the operations teams to connect to make sure that what we suggested that was a good idea is in fact a good idea and one that can take place in reality. So that's where the connect was really obvious for us.
Thank you, Valentina. Yeah, and in fact, one thing that I think most people perhaps don't think about very often is that this idea that Myanmar really truly has a, demographically speaking, a very young population and therefore a very young workforce. And so one could assume that, this crisis here is perhaps for the vast majority of the people in the market, in organizations, the actual first crisis they're going through, right? And so this brings a whole new set of challenges when managing a large workforce for which, say 70, 80% are not familiar with what it means to go through at such times. How did you feel that way? You guys are a very successful organization with thousands of people. You probably have seen this firsthand.
Yeah, so, sorry, there's a good yeah. How did it play out? Well, I think everyone actually really stepped up. That's the number one thing. So, it's not so much about young workforce or, like the industry or whatever it is, which are all true. But it's just that this is a pandemic that no one has ever experienced before. None of us, even the most senior person, hasn't experienced this before. We've sort of talked about, crises of different kinds and whatever. And so in that sense, like everyone really rallied together. And of course, whilst traditionally people kind of look to the leaders to provide suggestions and solutions, there was still a great deal of that, but they also knew that sometimes you just have to run with it. And so particularly for me, with my HR operation leads, it was very much about go with it. It's we've done as much as we can in terms of planning, and when the time came that we needed to trust each other to make the right decisions.
Excellent. Yeah, interesting. I'll pass it on to Maswei. Maswei, you have now been with Unilever for nearly a year. What has been in your case, this kind of like juggling between operational and strategic role? Mind sharing some insights on that?
Okay, thank you, Matt. Everyone, thanks for having me as well. So my name is Lwin. I'm Asia Director of Unilever Myanmar. So I've been with Unilever for about 9 months already. And of course, yeah, this is the most challenging and also the most, the inspiring experience for me. And also the practice in response to all the COVIDs. So on top of this operational tabs such as payroll processing, social security payments, I would like to emphasize more on the strategic role that we have to, step up. So HR is a compelling and the new role in the response to this COVID response and pandemic. The pandemic caused a lot of tremendous disruptions in life and also the business. And HR role is the key to support the organization and catalyzing the changes in the workplace as well. So during the pandemic, we have to make sure that we're protecting our people and their livelihoods. So always come first whenever we do, whenever we act, whenever we say, and whenever we implement it. And another one is we have to make sure that they are constantly engaged. And as you said, that we have a very young workforce, right? So we have to make sure that we are constantly engaged and enthused to achieve our objective and purposes together. And whilst we may have to rethink and reimagine and reconsider how to foster our talent and deliver our services and strengthen their capability throughout this forward-thinking HR strategy and action. So this forward-thinking HR strategy for the future of work that might include future office footprint, future ways of working, and future employee experience, because there could be the employee demand shift during and post-COVID as well. So those are some of the strategy shift that we have to step up as an HR.
Interesting. I mean, Unilever, we'll be talking about this in the next point, right, about international best practice and so on, but I would assume that this time has provided, a lot of just, I guess, having seen a lot of things that perhaps have not been seen before. And I wonder how this will shape future strategies as well, right, when it comes to talent attraction, employer branding, for example. I think we'll be touching upon this later about how this times, despite some of the opportunities on an employer branding perspective, and how this perhaps can shape how companies approach employer branding even in the good times. Right. Interesting. Well, thank you, Masue. And I guess, yeah, I mean, right on this, right, I'd like to now then perhaps move to Thida, right? Thida from Coca-Cola, thank you for being here with us today. We can't see you. I think we need to turn the video on. Yeah, so Thida, okay, fantastic. Here you are. So one thing, I'm really interested and I'd love the audience to hear from you is, you represent pretty much the oldest organization in certainly on the panel, right? I think Coca-Cola was founded more than 120 years ago. So as an organization that's been around for so long, could you give us some examples and some ideas of how has global or regional headquarters helped you with best practices, and how have these been very helpful to you in managing this crisis here on the ground in Myanmar?
All right, Matt. Thank you, Thida from Yoma. Yes, the last 7 months has been the last 7 months have been times of constant changes, adaptation, challenges, and uncertainty. So it is not an easy journey for all of us. And then for the Coca-Cola company, it has been here for 134 years already. And then Coca-Cola has gone through the test of the time and has shown leadership and resilience in doing the right thing. So this is not the first pandemic or crisis that the company has gone through it, but so much resilience we need. We are going through these challenges time together and getting stronger and stronger more than ever. Since early 2020, our global team closely monitored the situation time over time and then held the weekly COVID response call with all the country HR directors and then support in establishing the COVID-19 health and safety protocols and guidelines principles. And then, of course, we locally formed the IMCR, what we call it the Incident Management and Crisis Response Team, since the beginning of the epidemic, with relevant leaders, and each have a shared responsibility as per their expertise. So we did scenario-based assessment and then prepared escalation plan for each scenarios with business contingency plan. So, and then essential workforce classification, set up a skeleton structure, and then working arrangement and COVID-19 preventive workplace tools, technologies, and support for all the associates with different nature of the jobs. So we have daily COVID handle with a senior leadership team. We had weekly global COVID-19 response call, and then we have time-to-time based touch base with the IMCR team, and then HR led for all the issues related to the people. So this is what we are handling and how we can adopt the good practices from the global team.
Yeah. So has this really been helpful in sort of being able to react, would you say, much faster? Timing being such an important thing when it comes to reacting to crisis, would you say, has this really allowed you to hit the floor running and really being able to react a lot faster on the ground here in Myanmar?
Yes, exactly. Because the COVID-19 wave is the first wave hit in Myanmar in 23rd of March. But before it came here in Myanmar, we are start working on it as per the relevant protocols, following the guidelines, what are the scenarios, and then we are start working on it. So we did all the drill exercise and then work from home arrangement. So once the situation come up to our door, we are ready to take over all those challenges.
Okay, thank you. Well, on this, I'd like to pass it on back to Masue regarding regional and global headquarters best practices. Again, Unilever global organization, presence in hundreds of countries. So how has this been helpful for you?
Yeah, it's very helpful, and there are tremendous amount of support and guidance that we receive from both global and also the regional senior management. So if I have to pick up some, so it's definitely there are some similar approach that what Coca-Cola Thida have already said, right? So since the pandemic started in the other country, even not impacted in the Myanmar, there's the frequent guideline in terms of the health and safety guideline in terms of, temperature scanning, the monitoring the visitor, disinfection process, everything is already being in place. And once there is the crisis is really become serious, then we are already practicing for the work from home. And then there's been already the very clear global direction in terms of travel restrictions, so all this clear protocol guideline is already being in place. And also we have a regular IMT meeting, IMT Incident Management Team, daily Incident Management Team meeting, where we every day monitor the situations and also make the group decision and also communicate to our employee from time to time. So where are we at and what are the advice and protocol that they have to follow. So make sure that the employees stay connected, and then they feel that they are really care and then supported. And some of the inspiring movement for our employee, and also personally for me as well, is strong commitment and add from the senior management from global and regional team. They always trying to stay connected with the employee and express how they really care to us and also for our family. So this is the really most striking, inspiration for us, and really keep motivate us to embrace all this crisis thing. And also we have a regular, town hall and call from our Unilever Global Executive Committee. We have a regional and local town hall, and where we have a chance to ask all the questions, raise our concerns, and the management pick up and answer all the questions and give the explanation. So we are quite transparent, and now our voice are feel hard, especially during this crisis time, especially when people are having anxiety. Yeah, and also we have a clear guidance on the tier categorization for our factory that really helpful and answering some of the questions at the ground for the operational running in our factory as well. And also we have a clear set of people action plans and guidelines from the global to implement and localize in locally here as require local context. And another one is the well-being pathway and mindfulness helps, because as this COVID crisis is very stressful, and then it's create a lot of anxiety for the other employee and also including for the senior management. So globally, they create a well-being pathway and a mindfulness hub to support our college in this difficult time. And our local team initiated Well-being Wednesday newsletter, where we share all the well-being tips, useful links, and also we organize serious virtual series sessions. So for example, we inviting our speaker where how to cope the anxiety and stress, nutrition awareness, especially when you are on quarantine, when you are locked down. And also we create a lot of virtual engagement, such as you can cook with your family, where our senior leadership involved, and then they show the cooking and all the employee follow, and then, cooking with their family and then spend their time with family. And also we do have a weekly virtual workout such as Zumba, yogas regularly until now. And another point that I have to pick up is the accelerate online learning resources. So globally, we have a very strong online learning resources platform. Our team pick up and some useful and relevant module, and then we send out the weekly newsletter, learning newsletter. And on top of that, we select some of the courses for the line manager, how to cope and then how to engage with the people, especially in the COVID situation. So those are the very, good practices and very helpful for our local IMT team and as well as to our local leadership team. Yeah.
Very, very impressive. Very impressive. Well, now I guess transitioning on a more local scale, right? Valentina, you represent perhaps what arguably could be defined as one of the most progressive, if not the most progressive organization in Myanmar. So, despite it not having presence in hundreds of countries, but equally as successful on the ground here in Myanmar, how has this played out for you?
Yeah, exactly what Thida and Masbe were talking about in terms of having that group or head office reference and guidelines and protocols it would be super helpful. In Yoma group, we are it. So we actually needed to kind of come up with and develop. And of course, it was led by the group CEO and group HR. So it was very much looking at not just for me what is relevant in Yoma land, but shifting that a little bit for me personally, looking at it from a group perspective in terms of what kind of head office support do we actually offer. So all the things that you guys have been talking about in terms of, having the crisis management plan. So obviously each of the entities actually worked out their own relevance to their businesses, but then it needed to be aligned and supported at a group level so that it was consistent and looking at a group success over the period, managing and responding to the crisis, as well as in terms of the business continuity. And more practical guidelines in terms of what does the actual government announcement actually mean? How does it actually apply to each of the industries that we actually operate in? What do we actually do at different responses in terms of, code green, amber, red, or level 1, 2, and 3, depending on, whatever terminology was being used. So those are all the things that that COVID Command Center as a central point attempted to support and develop and then support and help the businesses implement. So we were also monitoring informally right from about early January, because there was a little bit of news and noise that was happening sort of late December, early January. So we're monitoring by about early February, I think 9th, 11th, 12th, we actually started putting some travel restrictions in place. And we started with the guidelines around the temperature checking and wearing of the mask and, all the hygiene, things like that. So that we started actually implementing some of those prevention and filtering it out to all the entities, because not only do we actually have different businesses, but we're actually in different locations as well. And so, all of that needed to be considered as well. And then when the situation started to escalate in the region, not just in Myanmar, the COVID Command Center was formally formed. And then from there on in, the Command Center was pretty much the hub, the center. And we met on a daily basis without fail for several months. Even on the weekends. And then, during the first wave, so the Pinya lockdown was obviously the testing point for us, all the things that we had actually put in place, how that actually worked, and what were some of the implications. So whilst, like many of the businesses, I'm sure, whilst there was restrictions and lockdown and limited movement and businesses were actually closed, some of the businesses that we ran could not be closed. So for example, we run 2 estates, with thousands of residents on both sides, Lwin and in Hlaing. Residents still need the services, they still need the housekeeping, they still need the the sanitation, gas, electricity, all of those things. So we need to then figure out exactly how the front line was going to respond to that, work through this, but at the same time keeping all of the employees and the residents safe as well. So that all of that was, very much around the center, command center's direction and guidance. The operational decisions and management decisions was needed to be made at the individual entity level. But coming back to that thing about, the group support, it kind of pretty much worked the same as, like a multinational, but except that it was at a local level, but at Panline head office, basically.
Just had to go upstairs.
Yeah. Well, actually, we couldn't, so we had to do it virtually here as well. So we went upstairs for a little while until Pinya, and then it was in everyone's living rooms.
Yeah. Well, very interesting. Yeah, I do remember. We had a meeting a few months ago, right? And I remember it was quite late in the evening after work. I think we were at business planning, right? But the point is, you were right, and you were not. You were saying, remember, you were on your phone, and like all these messages coming through for all the group support and so on. I'm like, gosh, like, is this all the time? I mean, right?
That was all the time.
Yeah, no,
That was all the time.
It's really, I think people will appreciate a lot more, moving forward, just how much of the work, you ladies have done. It's tremendous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just on that note, Matt, I mean, I should have probably mentioned, one of the things that we actually did, like many organizations, was also to support with the contact tracing as well. So instead of each of the entities and HRs and managers kind of running around trying to figure out, whether you're a layer 1, layer 2, what you're supposed to do, send you to the hospital, isolate, all of that. So we actually took that away from the entities as well, not so much to take it away in terms of taking the control, but rather providing that single point of contact. And we were, of course, very, very fortunate, and we are very fortunate in it that within the group we actually have the hospital. So, working very close, the hospital works very closely with the government and MOHS, but they were then also able to provide the group with insight and guidance in terms of how to handle some of those things. So in terms of the alignment and the group level support, and that is also what kept us busy as well. So I also ended up managing the contact tracing component of that with a group of HR professionals within the group. So, when that contact happens, it happens anytime.
Yeah,
so people kind of report in, and, centralized emails, all of that stuff,
Yeah. Thank you. Sounds like really Yoma has been able to, pretty much act like any other international organization in the market. And, I think testament to that also the fact that you guys are, being able to thrive even during these times. Moving on, let's talk to Mei U from Otsuka, Myanmar. Mei U, you represent a slightly smaller but equally impressive organization here in Myanmar. And I'd like to know from you, what have been some of the key learnings for your organization, for yourself, during the first wave that have really allowed you to be a lot more agile and fast now that the second wave is hitting? And particularly if you can touch upon perhaps some of the digital or technological learnings that you have, that you've seen and adopted in your organization.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mei U from the Pocari Sweat, Otsuka, Myanmar. So for us, we thought that crises are painful and sometimes devastating, but they also marks a turning point of our business that will happen how we can accept and respond then. This is our Otsuka Myanmar management visions. So after finishing the first wave, we learned that we should align with these pandemics. Not only this time, we may have to be prepared for the in the future as well. We need to change our crisis management as well. That is what first thing we learned. So as our employee relationship, we learn to build our good communications way and understanding and trust between employees and employer. And then this is the important things when we are facing this crisis, because when the crisis, we have to go through together, employee and organization as well. So, and then another one thing is we learned about to improve our company image and employer branding as well. So we learn to build transparent communications with our employees, our customer, and our supporter as well. This is we did more idea generated how to maintain our status and how to stand these kind of situations in the during the crisis.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. So we believe our management vision is we believe that how we treat our employee will be the best branding way for our employee and then our potential employee in the market as well. Because these days, all employees talking each other, other companies, how they treat their employees, and then how is the they share their information, what kind of company is more care for their staff. Like these things is happening. So we are more considered for these kind of things, how we treat our employee in the moment. So another for the technology part, since we are practice the work from home process. So we are more learning about the conference calls and how to present each other when we are away from team. So these kind of things we learn more, and we are giving the training how they're using our platform for the Google Mail, Google hangouts or like a Zoom or like this. We are training for these things. And then for the recruiting part, we are totally changes. We are making only by the interview by video call interview, and then some kind of paperless our psychology test, our skill test as well. These kind of things are we changing, and we also landed how we stand in the future as well.
Wow, very impressive. Has a lot of that know-how also come from, Otsuka, Japan, or mostly kind of on the ground? Have you received any support from global as well?
Yeah, actually, since our Otsuka Pharmaceutical is a healthy product company, so they always support to us how to be treat our employees to be healthy, and like how to be support to them. So we are making some kind of guideline, like as we provided our vitamin set for the our employee, or like this kind of support we get from the Otsuka headquarters. Then we got some kind of practice for the healthy practice also. This kind of guideline we share into amount of our employees.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you, Mayu. So on this, I guess back to Valentina, right? When it comes to some of the key learnings from the first wave, again, I don't even like to call it the first wave, right? Because virtually there was not much going on, except for obviously having seen from what's happening around the world. Now that we're down in the trenches with a real sort of, real heavy impact of the COVID pandemic. How do you feel in any way better prepared, having seen and having gone through the first wave? What were some of the key learnings from March and April, and particularly touching upon sort of on the technology as well?
Yeah. Can you hear me? I'll just do change the headsets. Is that okay?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly.
Yeah. We talk about the key learnings from the first wave, and here at Yoma, what we've sort of loosely been saying is that it's actually the first wave was the practice run. January, February, like I said, we had some sort of loose monitoring and some planning, behind the scenes planning, and then it really was stepped up sort of March, and then before going into this Pinya lockdown time. So leading up to that, it's a bit like the other organizations, what Thida and Mayu were saying. We've tried out the working from home arrangements, and there were lots of both psychological and logistic kind of challenges that we faced, with working from home. And of course, in our organization, we use lots of different software for drafting and drawing and architect and design and that sort of stuff that is just beyond Microsoft Word and Office, right? And so those were a real challenge for us, because we needed to make sure that there was the right capacity and server access and all the technology stuff that needed to be in place. And then of course, then there was the psychological side of things, in terms of being understanding how to actually work from home, having the boundaries, making sure that you're not sitting at the computer for 8 hours. And then there's also the family side of things as well. When you've got children at home, they don't know that you're working. They just think that mom or dad or whoever is at home. And so managing all of that was a real difficult thing in the beginning. And so then during that, first 10 days or so, and then subsequent returns back into the before the return to the office, there was a lot of support that needed to be provided, in terms of the daily check-ins, making sure you monitor your routine, a lot of flexibility when we're having the Zoom calls, is the screen on or off, or when is it appropriate, when it's not, all of those things that needed to be nutted out. Which will then, when it came around this second time round, that people were more used to it. And, as individuals are more prepared, and as managers and teams far more prepared. The other side of, sort of learnings from the first wave was about where do we actually need to put extra resources versus where do we actually need to move back and pare back. So and it's about, for us, it's about the different offices, as well as the different different offices, as well as the different work sites. So for me in particular, and Yoma Land's teams, is that it's not just about people that are working in the office, much like many of you guys, where you might actually have factories and distribution warehouses and things like that. So it's about understanding, what the different pockets of the business needs to do, and then how do we then, you know, make it a little bit better the second time round. So yeah, it's more about trial run the first time, you know, and fortunately for us, we didn't have any employees contracting the virus or coming very close to a positive case in the first round, but we did have some residents, and so you know, we sort of managed to work through that. And so the second time round, where there are actually in fact positive cases within the organization, again, we knew how to handle that much better with the support from different groups, but in particular from the hospital.
Yeah, you raised a good point. If you don't mind me asking, I just, in short, if you could just sort of shed some light on, you mentioned something very interesting, right? It's like the very nature of your organization sort of has, in a way, a more, you know, a white collar component and a blue collar component as well. You know, how was it different? Sort of, what have you learned from the first way of going into the second, in terms of how the two audiences perhaps require different types of approaches in the way that you've been managing the sort of response?
Yeah, so during the first, so as Matt has said, so we've got the people that work in the office, and then we also have the frontline operation team members, you know, that are either estate people, housekeeping, F&B. In Yoma group, we've got F&B, YKKO and KFC that's still running. I've also got the construction teams as well at the different project sites. So the first time around, it was like, okay, well, you know, for the lockdown, it's the lockdown, nobody can actually work. But shortly after that, in Pinya, so at the end of Pinya, I think it was the 12th or the 16th of April, some of the very much the frontline teams actually were able to go back to work. But then there were, you know, a little bit of sort of unrest about the density and things like that at site. So those were definitely the things that we learned from the first time in terms of preparation for the second time. How do we actually better manage that? You know, thinking about the separation, Team A and Team B sort of scenarios, and also with the estates, you know, having the skeleton staff, we actually had the people actually moved into the estate so that we can actually lock them down and sort of protect the bubble, so that they were individually as our employees were protected and safe, but also meant that they were actually available within our reach. But, you know, in terms of managing those numbers from the first time to the second time, we now had a better idea of where we needed those extra resources or less of those resources. And then in the second time around, particularly, you know, when you're talking about people in the office, people are actually able to work from home large part of the time, you know, 60, 70, 80% still effective. Whereas with the frontline employees, you know, drivers, caddies, you know, some of the construction teams, they can't work from home. And so then how do we actually keep them more engaged? And so the first time around, it was about keeping them engaged, you know, fun, social, staying connected with the teams. The second time around, we're actually putting some programs in place, more structured, and also a bit of redeployment of resources as well, where there is actually being a large group, many people from different parts of the group are helping out with our frontline services, like in the warehouses and so on. So yeah, being able to put some of those more structured programs in place to keep everyone engaged, but also employed, so that we didn't actually have to, you know, furlough anyone or, you know, downsize the workforce, or, you know, have cuts in the salaries. So all of the frontline people have actually been very much looked after in that sense, both from the engagement, meaningful work, as well as from the financial impact. And those were the lessons certainly learned from the first time that we were actually improve on in the second time round.
Yeah, great. Is there any particular sort of, from a tech side of things, any tech tool that has been particularly helpful to you managing such a large audience in terms of communication, perhaps?
Yeah. So, you know, we've been using Workplace for some time now, and that has been, you know, successful, but Workplace has definitely been one that has been used far more frequently, and that's been one of the key, not the only, but the key channel of communication for employees. And I'll show you some of the stuff in a second as well. And the second one is actually having developed a Yoma group, Yoma Connect app. So this is again another product that we've been implementing, sort of, slow phased implementation, but with the pandemic and when everyone's sort of away from the office or the communal hub of the workplace, we need to look at different ways of communicating in a timely fashion and also accurate. And so Yoma Connect has actually been pretty much pushed out to a large number of people. The first time around, again, it was teething problems, technology, people not necessarily having the right devices, the right software, whatever. And then over the last 3 or 4 months, we've actually been able to get everybody online using the app. And so now it is pretty much, part of how we do in the new world, if you like. So there was a lot of that forced implementation that happened with challenges the first time around, but the second time around, people were far more comfortable and feeling, like it's part of a normal way of working. So if I can just share the screen, just some of the things that we've actually been doing on Workplace as well. So it's engagement of different kinds. So we've actually got, all right. I think you should be able to see my screen. So Julian Ray is our photographer, production guru at Yoma Group. And so he's been taking lots of pictures, but it's not so much about him posting the pictures, but it's just about, being able to share and recognize some of the work that is actually going on, so that whilst the office people are at work, at home, working from home, to recognize that their colleagues are still out there, in the frontline role. So there's obviously the security teams, there's the hospital and a few others. And so, so this is one of the ways that we've actually kept engaged. The other one is more on the fun side. So this is actually back in April. So one of the members of the communication team came up with this Thin Junk Splash Challenge, and that was such an amazing success. It had nothing to do with work, but of course this was during the holiday time, and it was a major festival in Myanmar that we missed out on. So we turned it into a virtual challenge where people actually had to basically splash in water, themselves. So it was actually quite a good fun. So there we go. I think we did that one.
Yeah. There you go.
So it's a bit of a bucket. Do you remember the bucket challenge that we did, I don't know, a few years back or whatever? It's kind of the same concept. And that just went absolutely viral with everyone. And so what was really cool about this was that we were actually able to keep everyone connected and engaged. Doesn't matter where they were. So we had teams from Mandalay, we had some people were still on board at different times, living in different countries. And so it was amazing. And it was just great to have everybody, join and connect.
Yeah.
So that was that. And then even on the estate side of things as well. And so, just because these are the guys that actually needed to be here on site. And so making sure that we brief them on a regular basis and, keeping them engaged and challenged as well, because these guys actually came in to live in the estate for what was supposed to be a 10 or 11-day lockdown, and they ended up staying here for weeks because the lockdown was extended, and so so those are the things. But this is just showcasing some of the activities that did take place, but the key media fun platform being this one here, of course. And then there's also this we created a COVID shout out group as well, where everybody was in the group. So then we could actually communicate quite effectively, from a single, like I said, one of many, but the key workplace. And so then the message that came out here is very much consistent with whatever was happening via the app as well. So that you actually had, a multi-channel. But again, technology is fantastic, but not everybody has access to technology, and some of the frontline people still very much needed paper-based. So whatever it is, the key messages that we had in terms of health and safety guidelines and things like that still needed to rely on paper-based poster versions that needed to be put up in the boards and.
Well, thank you so much. That was really great, and it looks like perhaps would I be wrong to say that this sort of enhanced communication style and frequency with your workforce among the organization, it's probably something you'll be carrying on for for after as well, right? I mean, there's never too much of it, I suppose, and also probably contributes to creating a sense of belonging and community and so on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, fantastic. All right, well, let's move on to Thida. So, again, at Coca-Cola, how did you feel the first wave? Did help you in any way handle now the second one, and maybe give us some ideas about the technological changes and digital that you've been able to, implement at Coca-Cola?
Sure, Matt. In Coca-Cola, compared with the first wave and second wave, we have a very, very good experience as per the first wave experience, and we can tweak a little bit of our protocol, and we can enhance our process and procedures. So, but the level of anxiety of our associates are different, because the first wave, the number of cases are quite low, and then the second wave is increasing, is a lot. Hundreds and thousands cases every day. So it makes the level of anxiety is totally different. So this time we are managing to set up the right process and procedure in place, and then right behavior, and then right mindset for each and everyone under the umbrella of the Coca-Cola. So on that, we are our first priority is to protect our people, and the safe and well-being is a very top both priority for our people. So we take the responsibility, and each and everyone also need to take their own responsibility of caring and themselves, and then their colleagues and their family members as well. So under this kind of call to actions of all the leaders, it is we call it stay safe. So safe in the most also how to say the physical and mental well-being, and the psychological well-being is part of this thing. And then we also stay informed and keep continuously seek the right information from the right resource, and then connect to our associates every time from the several and multiple communication channels. So we also have the workplace, and then we also have the email communication. We have the several town halls, and then catch-up sessions with each associate, and then let them understand the situation, development, and then we make the transparency amongst the team. And then we keep on discussing what that matter most in this kind of period. So this situation, pandemic, COVID is the top most priority, but we have other strategic requirement and operational requirement, right? So we have to reprioritize what that matter most in this kind of period. And the last thing is we have to keep our hand tight, and then the collective strength is very important for all of us, because our top priority list is to protect our people, and then also to protect our business is also important for the sustainability and then well-being of the states. So these are the key learnings based on the first wave of experience, and we can make the better arrangement. And then, of course, in digital journey, we have did a lot of good activities and events for our associates. So before we start this COVID situation, or all those things happen, we are start transforming the digital journey, and then the technology-based platform for all our associates 2-3 years ago. So we can easily tweak the approach of all the agenda from people, from HR perspective, not only for the COVID information and situation. We also have the engagement activities, virtual town hall, virtual engagement activities. We have internal challenges like a step account competition, and then we also employee care package to different nature of based on the different nature of our associates and different needs of them. So we think properly, and then we have consciously and communicate them, and then let them know, and then we are the good listeners for all our associates. So they are easily to reach out to us at any time, and then we are in this kind of situation, HR help as a change catalyst. We are also as a connector. We are also as a coach, and sometimes we are as a trainer.
Yeah.
In terms of the digital, start practicing all this digital platform, and then from learning and development, we have we have how to say onboard, deploy LinkedIn Learning to all our associates, and then it's cover 14,000 new courses. So we make a learning catalog for them, and then we have to share what are the areas they need to learn. And then also, as per the global support, we also provide the virtual learning. So it's a paid forward formula and snowballing formula. And then they trained us, they trained local HR practitioner, and then those global program, and then we shared and we trained the rest of other organization. So there are three different how to say virtual learning programs, and then it covers more than how to say 800 associates from our company. So, and then also for the recruitment, we have our own recruitment enabler, which is we collaborate with JobNet. So we have two web portal platform, and then we have did the video interviews and online interviews. Everything is in place, and all those from JobNet, our own portal, and then also portal, we got a very good customer tracking system, and then we also have I would say that in this kind of duration or pandemic situation, nobody can stop us. So we can stop, we can transition to the traditional way to digital way, but each recruitment, development, training, and then the staff engagement, and then well-being, we didn't stop at any all. We changed our approach. So this is what we are doing in Coca-Cola.
That's impressive. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you know, a lot of things to juggle in the last couple of months, but certainly it sounds like from what we've heard so far, technology has been just so central. And you know, we'll talk about later in conclusion about in terms of opportunities, but I would you know confidently say that certainly technology has been an underlying enabler for so many things during these times, and perhaps made it a whole lot easier in certain ways. Moving on to Masway, how has Unilever, you know, what have you seen with Unilever in, you know, if you can highlight perhaps what are the top 1 or 2 learnings from the first wave that you're now, you know, that are allowing you to be a lot more prepared right now and moving forward as well. Not just in the second wave, but also let's focus on the future. One of the questions that has come up now in the audience, we can perhaps start touching upon in towards the last 30 minutes we have. It's about also looking at the future, right? So now there's a second wave. Who knows? There's going to be a third one. Hopefully not, right? But the point is there is a future ahead that looks different. Right. And so in what ways the learnings from the first wave have allowed you and Unilever to be more effective now and perhaps in the future?
Okay, so thanks, Matt, for the questions.
Yeah.
So the first thing that I have to pick up is the stay close while walking the distantly. So that's really helpful that we are preparing ahead, and then we are well prepared coming to the second wave. So while we have been all asked to stay at home and safe, we continue to closely monitor the situation, look at the actions, and protect our people and business continuity as well. So we try to stay close and connected as much as we can, although we walk distantly in any form or methods. You know, for example, we have a daily IMT meeting, regular town hall, internet communications, and to stay connected with the people. And then we use a lot of this MS platform to regularly communicate all the government regulation, including our internal protocols, and also some memorandum that all the employees should aware of as well. So this is something that we've been practicing since in the first wave. So when the second wave is coming, we just accelerate what we have been doing, and we just have to translate and then relate into the real situation of the ground. Another one is the adaptability. And of course, I think everyone have to adapt, right? So we have to adapt first. The most importantly is that this COVID pandemic crisis has been, you know, uncharted water for the entire global community, and it's impact the government and company and individual as well. So we have to deal with all the new reality and also inevitable negative impact of the economy as well. So why we hit pause on this? Most of our business as usual activity, we have to quickly adapt to the new reality in all aspects as a brand, as an employer, as a service provider. So this really, you know, are helpful in to prepare and embrace all the crises that come in the second wave as well.
Okay.
So yeah, so when you are asking for the technology and then some of the digital things we are using. Yeah, so actually since before COVID, we have most of our Asia process has been digitized, such as we are using the JobNet portal, we're using Workday Asia system, but during COVID pandemic, so we just have to change our ways of working, not only the Asia, but also entire, organization to have a well-supported ecosystem in place. So for Asia perspective, we have a virtual onboarding program, and we do have a video interview and using some of the e-employee health check form, and we use the dashboard to monitor where are we at and then where is our employee status from time to time, that we can detect when there is a cases. And also we strengthen using of MS platform as another channel. And we also introduce some of the employee recognition program, because during this pandemic, everyone has to work tirelessly, and also sometimes they even work beyond working hour. So we introduce some of the online platform that to recognize employee, So those are some of the things that we introduce from the digital platform from the Asia perspective.
That's really great. And look, I think I've been reading the questions that have come in so far, and perhaps rather than condensing everything in the last part, there's a really interesting question that I think you've kind of have answered here. One gentleman is asking about virtual onboarding, right? So you mentioned right now Unilever has a virtual onboarding system. The gentleman is saying, we've had to onboard a number of people in the last few weeks, but because we're not able to meet these people, it's really hard. Any best practice that you'd like to share? And by the way, this is for all of you, not just for Musway. And how do you adapt the goals of the team and this person who's new in the organization without having the opportunity to meet in person? So any words of advice on the onboarding process while not being able to meet in person?
So from the hardware part of view, so we just use the MS platform. So since we already, when we offer to the employee, we've been already, create all the email access for them. And when the timing is coming, we, communicate, so what are the onboarding process that they have to follow. So our Asia business partner on the first day, so she introduced with the team and as well as to the line manager, and then line manager taking on board and introduce with the team to make sure that the person is, inclusive in the team, and then create the team spirits. And on the other hand, so each and every of our Asia counterparts explaining about all the Asia processor policy, so where can they learn, what are the learning platforms, so what are the safety, protocol that we as an employee have to follow. So this takes 1 or 2 days of onboarding, and then after that the person have to just continue working from home. And then we always encourage the line managers to keep contact, and as well as our HRBP regularly reach out to the employee, temperature check. So how do they feel? So any support that they need. Yeah, that's something that we normally we do the better onboarding program.
Yeah, that's great. And well, on the other, so perhaps Valentina, Musway, may you like to add on this, but just if you can also maybe just add one more thing. The gentleman is also asking about, onboarding is one part, but also, the goals of the organizations have changed, right? Because everything is basically, shifted in different directions. So how do you plan to also do employee evaluation, considering that the goals themselves, right, which is what normally people get measured against, have changed? So how do you combine all this? Would anybody mind shedding some light on this?
Okay, so the first, so your question to Valentina, right? So just go first. Yeah. So just to add on that, so when in terms of goal and evaluation from the Unilever perspective, so since we have a pandemic, one of the very clear instruction from global is we are one Unilever. So don't worry about your evaluation, but we trying to deliver our best, all the business goal, but it don't take us pressure that you have to, deliver and achieve that number. So we just change the mindset and then create the enabling culture first. And then later we have a regular check-in. Where are we at the business process? What are the adjustments that we need to do? So this is the regular communication that happening, in the town hall as well as in the team meeting as well. So just to add on that. And over to you, my Valentina.
Thank you. And that is a fantastic culture and approach that you've got at Unilever, the one Unilever. So that's fantastic. From Yoma Group and, particularly Yoma Land as well. So yes, still continue to, trying to run business as usual, but in the context of uncertainty and in this new world. So, we try to, work towards some of those outcomes and the KPIs, but there's a great deal of flexibility that needs to be in place, right? So things are changing, we just don't know. The good thing about the Yoma group is that we have diverse businesses, right? So then there's, peaks and troughs and things that are happening. So then again, that's the thing about looking at things from a strategic and group perspective for the executives is very, very important. EXCO executive group meets on a regular basis, just like we actually have with the town hall and, various sort of communication channels and forums with the group and the CEO for everybody. The executive team actually still continues to meet very regularly to be able to address and be agile in moving to what is happening on the ground. On a very much the operational side of things is, in terms of the onboarding, of course, everything's sort of being turned into virtual and checking in regularly because now there is a, onboarding in general is such an important part when you're doing it face-to-face. When you're actually doing it virtually, then you need to make sure that people are really connecting, and it's hard to connect with the new team when you actually haven't had a chance to meet them and work with them side by side. So just checking in on a regular basis, that's still very much an important aspect. But also that flexibility extends to things like the probation period. So where there is ability to set a longer probation time right from the outset, or in some of the like an EC type environment where we actually do have to adjust and extend. So yeah, those are, I would say that that thing about having the eye on the target in the moving environment, as well as the flexibility just to be able to respond and being agile is the approach.
Okay, thanks. Perhaps Mayu, you would like to add on this in your organization. How have any words of advice when it comes to digital onboarding, virtual onboarding, and have the goals of Otsuka Myanmar changed in any way, and has that have any impact on the employee evaluation, performance evaluation that you're planning? I think you're mute. Yeah.
Okay. This question is actually how we are operating our onboarding system like this.
Yeah. So one gentleman is asking, what are some words of advice for onboarding virtually people because we cannot meet in person? Has that changed? Have you had to go through a similar experience? And in what ways is also having an impact on, when onboarding people and when talking about performance, the goals of the organizations might have changed because of the pandemic, and how does that reflect in that conversation with that person who is new, who is looking to learn a lot and understand how their performance will be measured?
Okay. Firstly, in the moment, we know much studying the onboarding process, but previous time we are making the work from home and then some kind of ordinations. So in this case, when the new employee joined in our organizations, that time some of the BPers work from home. So at that time, especially firstly, I would like to explain about our orientation process. Actually, when the employee is studying our company, we at first stage we communicate with all of the department, like HR, admin, finance, everything what they have to done in the one they are studying in our company. So that day is we already sharing and introducing all of the process what they have to face, including rules and regulations, many things like that. So in this case, some of the department head is work from home, taking that day is work from home. So at the time we are making the conference calls together, and then we make sure they are some kind of presentations, and we using some kind of platform to be present all of our procedure in the persons. So at that time, at least one person, so we trying to take care the new persons join at our company. So these kind of things we're doing like this. So actually, before our onboarding process is before the employee joins, we already implement and we already making the schedule that days that employee will join. So at the time, we already making the schedule and conference meeting also we arrange very well.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Mayu. Thida, any addition to the fellow panelists' responses on this?
Yep, I just would like to add a few things regarding to the goal setting and objective. We are practicing the performance enablement approach. Previously, we are working as the managing performance and performance management, which is the yearly cycle, and we have to do the mid-year review and year-end review and set the target and goal at the beginning of the year. Now it's changed to the performance enablement approach. It is the monthly.
So could you spell that out? What's that called? Performance.
Enablement. Performance
okay.
enablement.
Okay.
Yeah. So it is a refreshing conversation, and then line manager and associates, we have a weekly, monthly touch on basics conversation, and then we set the target for the short-term priorities. So we can call it what that matter most for those people, his team member or his or her team member, the whole team. What is the priority for this month? And then what is the priority from at the end of the month? We review again, we refresh, we check, and then we identify what are the new priority for next month. So it is more agile, and then it is more easy to adapt. And then we got more interaction with line manager and team alignment. So we shift this performance approach to performance enablement approach. Is mainly we would like to take out the labeling with the performance rating, and then rather than that, we put a lot of support to all our associates. So line manager take more accountability, and the line manager need to support whatever the team member needed, and then team member also need to understand what is the expectation for him or her in the short term of period. Yeah. Of course, we have the long-term goal for the whole year, but we have the short-term goal for every month. So it is the newly introducing for all of the associates. And then from the onboarding, we have newly onboarded 10 management trainees in July. So we did 100% virtual onboarding. So there are different functions involved: sales and commercial, supply chain and logistics, and then finance. So finance, just only finance is the work from home group of people. The rest of the people and the separate functions they have to work together with the respective team members. So how we onboard is we did virtual onboarding program. On top of that, we have identified the respective buddies for each associates, and then also they have the respective supervisor take care of their improvement of weekly or monthly basis. And then we also have a touch point meeting with all the leadership teams with the director every quarter. So we are working on it, and it's doing very well.
Yeah, well, that's really great. I think that's a really good answer, and on top of what everybody else has said. So it sounds like both from a Unilever perspective, less pressure on the long-term goals, and as also kind of very practically demonstrated by Thida, focus on the short-term ones and rather look at it from, because you don't know really what's going to happen in 3-4 months. So rather short-term objectives, and that's how the evaluation is measured. That's really great. All right. Well, look, we have about 15 minutes left, so perhaps we can merge the last 2 questions together, which is the challenges and opportunities, rather than doing 2 separate rounds, if you don't mind. Let me go back to Mei Wu regarding challenges and opportunities, right? So what have been real, and we've pretty much touched upon a lot of things so far, right? But if there's anything in particular that in your case have been sort of the biggest top 2 challenges in the last 6 months, and then towards the end, perhaps looking at opening up about what sort of opportunities do you think this period presents?
For us, is firstly our thought is how to operate our business to going well while taking care of our employees' life and healthy. So since this is a global issue, we cannot point out the fault of someone. So first challenge is we have to understanding for employee and organizations, and then cooperation together with employees and company. So we make sure employee also need to notice this is a war pandemics issues and concerning each human being. And then this is the employee also need to understand, need to be well fast, They also need to take care by themselves. This is we are making challenges to know them. So another challenge is how to communicate with the employees if in case they are being the emergency case, like as a primary contact or positive or like home stay, these kind of situations, we always have to take care of them. They are not to be panics, and then they should not get the depression for this case, because after they got these contact persons or positive issues, they found that they are really panics, and they got the depression as well. They're really afraid to lose their job as well. This kind of situation, we must care to communicate with them that our company, Otsuka Myanmar, is one of the supporter of their in these situations. So we also trying to be communicate them where to how we support it if they faces this kind of situation, like as positive issues or something like that. At that time, we show up what will be they can get some kind of supported from our company. This kind of thing is we have to clear first. So this is kind of challenges we got it. And then some kind of operation staff also cannot like as Valentina show up, some of the operation staff cannot doing the work from home process, cannot practice that kind of process. So we need to make sure they to be safety, their operation staff and going through the our business work. So these kind of challenges we got it in this in that crisis cases.
Okay, all right. So moving on to Valentina. Top 2 challenges and sort of in conclusion about what opportunities do you foresee this period has presented to you and looking at the future as well. You're mute. We got it. Unmute.
Okay, here we go. Aside from any other things that everyone's been talking about.
It's being mute.
It's on mute?
No, you're good now. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so things that people have already discussed in terms of the challenges, things like the work from home. And so, yeah, working from home is definitely the one thing, because we do actually have very much the frontline people who cannot work from home, and what do we actually do to keep them occupied and engaged. And the other challenge, of course, is that, business continuity, like how do we still continue to operate and make money and stay in the business when there is, a downturn in volume, sort of demand, and just the sheer ability to sell, to operate. In terms of opportunities, I mean, there's probably 2 particular ones that I think, coming sort of from the university background, we've seen this quite often, where whenever there is a downturn in the economy in terms of the workforce and, like recessions and things like that, people always turn to education. So I think that this is actually a really, really good time to, engage in learning, whether it's online learning, whether it's picking up on different projects that you've been sort of putting it on the back shelf. So, I mean, I'm talking about it from a but at organizational levels as well. I think we can really use this somewhat downtime to build the capacity of our workforce, trying out new roles now as a result of volunteering and redeploying into different areas gives you a chance to see what skills you have, what strengths you have, and then maybe perhaps to formalize it. So I think that upskilling and building the competency and capabilities of the individuals and teams is an opportunity, definitely. And the other one, Thida has already talked about, is about the employee well-being. So, in Myanmar, we are still learning and growing as HR practitioners and as a HR sort of industry. But, in the workforce, in most of the sort of other countries and front runners and whatever, employee assisted programs and wellness programs are very much in place, and it's part and parcel of employee benefits, right? And so to be able to recognize that there is now a significant need for it because the environment and the situation calls for support to deal with psychological and emotional issues that people might face through isolation and just adapting to this very uncertain time. Now it just means that we have to really look at the real human side of HR and the well-being, and putting some structures and policies and processes in place, and ultimately programs to be able to support employees. And so, yeah, I think that's the two key areas that I see: education, competence, and capability building, and well-being of employees.
Excellent, and I think the words of advice you've just given are pretty much applicable to any organization of any size, right? It really doesn't matter how large of an organization you are, but creating a culture of learning and sort of promoting that, it's something that is for the most time even free, right? Today we have access to resources that are, like just think of the billions of hours of learning material there is on YouTube, for example, right? And so it's about really just promoting that culture of learning. I love that, Valentina. Thida, on this, anything to add?
Can I? Hello.
Yes, please. Of course.
Can I add one more thing about the opportunity part?
Of course.
For opportunity, last time I didn't answer for the opportunity part for this period. So as I told you before, the crisis also marks as the turning point for good point for us, since for Asia. As Asia in our companies, we thought that our people cannot learning when they are busiest working place in the normal day. So this time is a good taking that. This time is we look like a break for our operations. So in this during this day, we are trying to be provided some kind of training, and then communicate, and we are communicating with the employees in this time. So this is the good chance for us, because a normal time our people don't have much time to consider our organizations, and then they are developing as well. So in this case, we are trying to be promoting this kind of training process as well. Last time also we doing the 2 or 3 trainings in this during this pandemic situations. And then another one thing is, since Pocari Sweat is a healthy drink product as FMCG company, so we also really encourage to improve our employee health status. So we are trying to making the some kind of activities while they are doing in the work from home process. Sorry.
You can see your screen now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a moment. So these kind of activities we are launching to them. So like this, we are promoting to improve our employee sport activity process. So this is every evening that we are launching to be make sure they also together practice with us. These kind of things we are doing in the, this is one of the opportunity for us. And then we trying to be knowledge sharing to our employee during this day, because of they are more emphasized on they don't much work currently. So at that time, they more emphasize for our organization's ethics process, and then some kind of training as well. These kind of things we are taking this chance, we're doing in as a Asia opportunity from Asia part.
Excellent. Thank you, Mayu. Thida, so regarding with you, anything to add regarding challenges, but most importantly opportunities, right? And how can you use this time to create better bonds with among your workforce?
Thank you, Matt. For this kind of period, the pandemic is not just an economic or health crisis, but it's a leadership crisis as well. So we can see that some leaders did very well and some did not. So good judgment and leadership resilience and leading with example are the key for this time of period. And then another challenges I have noticed is the agility in adapting the situation, and then proper reaction upon the unprecedented changes in the biggest challenges in time. So the thing what we can do is a deep understanding and empathy are very critical at this time. And then when our people might have the intense personal distraction. So we have to proactively seek the uncover problem this is causing them, and then we can provide the necessary support. So it will be very helpful for the social well-being, physical well-being, mental well-being, and then to gain the sustainable growth of the business.
That's great. There's one person asking a question specifically to you, Thida, is what kind of employee care package the company is offering for infected staff? If you have any addition to that.
All right. So there are several type of employee care package. In the first wave of COVID, we provide to all associates, to 1,300 plus associates with the employee care package, which including basic food stuff like oil and rice and all those things. And then this time again, we have provided the employee care bag for those who are working at the front line. So field sales people who are still need to come to the office because of the nature of the job. And then also for the factory people, we provided the employee care bag, which include the vitamins and then also the hygiene related things like hand sanitizers, and then the separate webs or all those things, and together with some of the food stuff with Ovaltine, and then our products, of course, Minimate NutriBoost. Is for those people. And then another thing is we have three category of associates who are under home quarantine, who are under facility or hotel quarantine, and who are at the hospital quarantine. Based on the requirement of each associate, the company is 100% covered for all their well-being. It means medical insurance, health insurance, and then for those who need to provide additional support, we are also supported. So this employee care package is different from based on the situation and based on the severity of the case. It's different, but all of our associates are 100% cover of the medical and life insurance.
Okay, excellent.
Am I answered?
Yeah, very, very interesting. I think these are all very practical pieces of advice that I hope the audience can treasure and implement literally from tomorrow, right? That's also the really the core of today. It's to allow people to hear of your stories as leading organizations. Masue, in conclusion with you, right? So Unilever, one of the top employers, multiple time recognized in Myanmar as well with the MEA and best companies to work in Myanmar and so on. What do you foresee as some of the key opportunities to take the level game at Unilever even higher in the future?
Okay, so on top of what the other panel member has shared, so what I want to share you is Asia work as a tandem with the business heads to engage the employee and keep up morale and then reconfigure the workflows. I think this is the good timing and a good opportunity to keep engaging and then showing how the company is care about them. So sometimes we always used to say that, right? People are the most important asset. So what do we mean by that? So this is the most important and a good opportunity for the HR leader to think ahead in which way, in most pragmatic way, how can we support to the employee, for the both emotional and then physical safety, and also how the organization will be provide the care support to them. So this is the one part. But another one is I'm just would like to see the move forward thinking, so what will be our future of work look like? So because there could be a lot of open talent economy that could be happen, not only locally here, but also, regionally and globally, because now everyone can work from home, right? So why can't other country people can work from Myanmar as well? So there will be a lot of open, talent economy that will be happening. So one of the most important things is opportunity to upscale our staff. And then we have to see how we will be going to redeploy our talent and how we can stretch our people so that people are still learn, and also they can still have an exposure not only in Myanmar, but also in the other country across regionally and globally. And so that they are also stay relevant, and then they can maximize their potential as well. Yeah, so this is the one thing that I just want to highlight on top of what the other member said.
That's great. All right, well, I'm just like scanning through the questions to see. I think I can merge two questions together, and perhaps this is the last one. We just have a few more minutes. Moving forward, right, so let's look at the future, right? We know where we are today. The future is unknown, but we get a sense that this is not going away anytime soon, right? So, and some of the impacts and changes that we've had to, implement over the last couple of months have fundamentally, changed the way most companies will operate in the future as well. So one question from the audience is about, how will companies implement the new normal and maintain customer-facing standards, right, when you're not able to do that? That's one. And together with that question, I think it would be interesting to know, one person says, now we're all confined at home for the foreseeable future. What kind of is the worst case scenario protocols that organizations should prepare for, right? So in essence, what if we're not going to be able to meet people for a long time? What kind of, are you already preparing? Are you already thinking about that? Are you already preparing in any way about that? Or could you operate as you do today for a long time? Will it require any additional change? Any volunteers?
Yeah, maybe I'll take that to begin. I mean, just some sort of ideas, but yeah. So we have definitely started thinking about preparing for the long term in terms of the work from home arrangement. And we just mentioned earlier, in terms of what do we do? So there's two parts to this, right? So the ones that actually can work from home. And how do we actually continue to support that? So we already know about the wellness, the psychological impact, the isolation, lack of human interaction, all of those things. So we are, working on those now in terms of the assistant programs, the engagement, and also down to things like the tools and facilities, and how do we actually manage that. So I think it's still a work in progress, just learning each day and each week with regards to what's coming up and how do we actually improve on that. And the second part is this group of people who are not actually able to work from home, and that comes back to things like the learning programs and redeployment and finding other ways of keeping them employed. It's still, again, a work in progress, but we've started on some of those things. So even our leadership program that we have, it's a group-wide leadership program. It's now pretty much turned digital, the entire thing, and so it doesn't necessarily have the same feeling impacted when it's face-to-face, of course. And then so it's about how do we actually create much more smarter learning platforms and engagement in that sense to make it impactful. And the last point around that was about innovation. So I know that even the most simplest thing like takeaway and food delivery stuff have just absolutely gone through the roof. So anytime when there is a crisis like this, a really good opportunity for innovation and doing things very differently. Traditionally it's always been fast food that has actually been home delivery, but now you see some of the young going's top restaurants, 5-star restaurants, or high-end restaurants are actually delivering in a way that is still trying to experience the same as what it would be when you're when you're enjoying it at the restaurant. So things like the packaging companies, I bet you they didn't think about having to create beautiful boxes and strings and bows and ribbons. So there's a lot of room for innovation, I think, and that's a way to look into the future, is just creating different ways of packaging where you can't. When I say packaging, I don't just mean food, but things like people can't. I had a friend bring me some flowers, and I said, "Where did you get flowers from? How did you get to go out? And you can't go out." And so, "Well, no, it was actually delivered." And there's a new group, I think, called Zay to Go. So they actually go to the market for you and pick up what you need, and then so there's lots of innovation and opportunity for innovation that I think we just need to think more broadly, which is fantastic for a place like Myanmar, where we are still developing and growing, and things like this critical thinking and innovation and creativity. It just now means that we have to, otherwise we just can't survive.
Excellent point. Anything to add to that? From maybe on this week, anything to add regarding any type of innovation and looking forward? How do you, could Coca-Cola operate like this as it is today for the next 12 months without needing to change anything?
Sure. Currently, we are start working on the digital marketing, and then we are start working with the food aggregator through the to send our products to their hometown, and then we also work with our distributors. So, and then previously we have mainly used for the from the outlet selling, and then from the marketplace. But now from the distributor to door reach out to our delicious products to each consumers. So previously we were using the customer base. Now we are more reach out to the consumer based. So this is the approach. And then of course, I'm sure that our commercial team is keep on working and driving for the innovative idea to make our product to become still how to say sustainable business for our people in Myanmar.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Maswe or Mameyu, anything to add? If not, I think we will bring it to the end. Okay.
So from Unilever perspective, of course, we are driving the e-commerce for the customers facing, right? So as this is the one of the key important business objective that we are going to drive. So in terms of employee part, so we will be more focusing for the how will be the future of work look like. So given that now we are reviewing all the flexible benefits, so what kind of the flexible benefit that we can personalize so that the employee can maximize their benefits. So while working from home, because there will be the different mechanism of working from home, and then people may need the different tools, different infrastructure. So this is something that we will be already, we start already looking into that. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. May you anything to add?
Yeah, for us, so we are trying to stay continuously the work from home process for the back office people. For the operation staff, is we are still trying to be fully packaged for their benefits when they are making like going through the operations. So these kind of operations that we cannot do like as a work from home. So we are coverage them for their benefit as well. So this is I think we are the FMCG company. So our operation team also trying to reach our customer to the in these situations as much as they can. They're making some kind of strategic program for like as e-commerce and some kind of door-to-door assistant as well. So this kind of thing is we are stay trying to catch up in these situations. Depend on the situation, we will change some kind of strategy to be continuous our business and our employee benefit as well.
Okay. All right, fantastic. Well, I think this brings us to the end. I just want to say thank you so much to all of you. Thank you, Thida from Coca-Cola. Thank you, Valentina from Yoma Land, and thank you, Maswe from Unilever, and thank you, Mayu from Otsuka, Myanmar. On behalf of me and of all the audience, we reached almost 200 people tuned in at the peak earlier today. It's great to see everybody come and learn. So for the audience, we will be publishing this webinar on our YouTube channel, the recording, so you'll be able to play it over and over again. If you'd like, you can reach out to me at any time on LinkedIn, or I'll be putting my email into the YouTube video description as well. So thank you so much for everything today, and we will see you at the next webinar. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you so much for having us.
Bye.
Bye.